Hello guys, welcome back if you've been here before. If not, today's a learn your lesson video. So if your kickstart and your dirt bike goes down and doesn't come back up, do not force it, it needs to be opened up, okay? So this bike here belongs to a friend of mine called Tommy, and Tommy's kickstart at the dog ear here had completely snapped off, but it got lodged inside where this fitment goes inside the engine, where I will show you. There. Up here's where your kickstart goes. Now you see all these marring marks all over the case here, chomping out. That's what happened with trying to forcibly keep kicking it when that piece was broken off and in there. Okay, so do not try and force it. If it gets stuck and it won't come back up, it's time to open the case. Okay, so we're going to continue forward right now and remove the clutch system so we can get back into here, because he's bringing the parts today to have it rebuilt. So I need to get this done first so I can clean all the old gasket material off the cases, ready for the next one. I also need to remove the crankshaft cog here so I can get in behind it for changing the crankshaft seal. So let's get about it. Okay, so we've loosened up all the bolts and the clutch springs, which are a 10mm. We've backed them fully out. I will be taking the pressure plate off, but first we'll pull all screws with springs out and set them up individually out of the way. That's what we will do with all these. And then when the clutch plate comes off, you need to be careful that your little pin in the center here, which should always be faced side on when you're putting it back together again, so that your clutch actuator rod arm can actuate the pin to actuate your clutch. But yeah, and I will state as well, I'm only changing the seals because we are in here and some of the seals need changed anyway, so there's no point having to reopen the engine again at a later date to change the seals and more gaskets when we can just do it all in one go. So we're going to get that done. Down here is also the case with the power valve, a governor and the water pump. We are actually going to take the water pump apart, replace water pump seals as well as the kickstart shaft and other stuff in here. The shift shaft as well will be coming out. It'll all be getting changed. So yeah, get these out, get them standing up and get the plate off, and then we'll look at getting the clutch apart and then getting the clutch off in one go. Okay, so what I will say is, when you're looking at your clutch, now these plates here all go up inside. Now usually down the sides of these, each individual plate, that case would be really grooved. Tommy's is actually pretty good. You notice a straight line? When they work, they hammer into the side and they cause major grooving, which can cause your clutch to really go bad. This seems absolutely fine, so nice one, Tommy. And then for this, we pop the face off, and you've got to keep hold of the thrust bearing on the back. There's a couple, so rather than lose it, just take it out, sit it up the way it is. Yeah, set these aside, and then we need to get the center nut off. We'll use the impact buzz gun to get that off, and then we'll try and just pull the whole clutch off in a winner so we're not separating, mixing everything up. So we'll get that done next. Okay, so we buzzed this off. Here's a 27mm on a big buzz gun. It'll whip it off real quick. Make sure your direction's right so you're not sticking it on. There's a sticking it on too tight and damaging the case. Got a little retainer clip that has little tabs. Those little tabs facing the little grooves at each side. And now should be able to remove the whole clutch. Be mindful of the bearings inside the clutch at the back here. They're absolutely fine. The clutch all comes out as one job. And yeah, job done for that one. So set that up safe out of the way. Up with the retaining pin and the bolt. And so now we're in here, in at the back. So at this point, I would go around and undo the shift shaft lever, so that I can slide the full shift shaft mechanism out, so that I can change the seal on the other side and get that done. Everything seems good in here. Next up will be impacting this one out, taking this little hanger, the oil seal retainer, we'll take that off to get to the oil seal. He has been experiencing fouling plugs, but it's kind of rusty from getting back riding again, but I really do think it's running rich and could possibly be sucking in oil from the engine, so we'll eliminate that by changing the seal and hope everything's good. But for now, yeah, we're gonna undo this and get the seal out before we go and undo the lever to get the shift shaft off. Right guys, so this one is a 14mm. Again, if you're using an impact, make sure it's in the right direction before you start. That's it off. That one is actually quite tight. So, right, so get this one off. We pull our cog off. That's up there. And we also pull out the cylinder that retains inside the seal. So we pull them out. Now we just got to take the 10mm out that holds the retainer. It's a good idea to put stuff like Loctite on these things, just so they're not coming loose in your engine while you're riding. But that's them removed, and now we have access to the seal to remove the seal, and yeah, that one is pretty far gone. So we'll get that one out, and when we get it out, you can use a few different tools, but what you don't want to do is, if you're using a screwdriver, you don't want to ram it all the way through so that you're scratching the outer edge of the rim, because that's what could cause an oil leak. So you take your time. If you have something plastic, use something plastic if you can, just to work it out of there. You just don't want to risk scratching up the surface, that's all. But yeah, go slow, make sure you do it right. And guys, I'll show you this, because usually you would add a new crush washer when you mess about down at your oil. This seems to have a steel washer on it rather than a copper one, so we are going to apply some Teflon tape. Should be absolutely fine. Again, oil bolt underneath, twist it even with the ratchet until it goes to stop, and then a quarter turn more. Don't need to tighten it any more than that. That's how you strip out the most important case on your bike. Well guys, I think he's trying to resupply my toolbox. If you can't tell, there's a socket still attached to the gear lever. Haha, should we claim it? I think we should. I think this is meant to be Tommy's new quick release function, where you tighten it too tight and you can't get your socket back. So I'll knock that loose for him. Now you watch the video, because I need to watch the screw. So just tighten it down, give it a couple of love taps, boom, done. Again guys, we've removed the kick shaft from the shift shaft from the other side. Now we need to get to this seal here. So again, we just apply with a screwdriver, gentle force, pop, just comes out like that. And then you got your seal. We'll replace it with a good one. And people asking sometimes, what way do the seals go? So there's a flat side, and there's also a side with an inner ring. This actually has a spring around the inside of it to keep the tension on it. So that side always goes towards the fluids. So the fluids in this case are in this way. So we would have the flat side out, and the side that tightens against the fluid towards the inside. Yeah, we'll clean out the hole and be ready for Tommy bringing the seal kit. And in case you were interested in my absolute hellhole, I have all the parts out individually, all in order, so I know where they are, what goes back on next. See? Although it's madness in here, it's organised chaos. and that's how it goes in here. Okay, so when using a razor to clean off your gaskets, don't come at a high angle because it will cut in and dig. So you don't want to be like away up here like this. You really want to be lying flat, and then just slowly lift it until it starts to catch, and then bring it. Now another way is you can hold it pretty much perfectly vertical and scratch along to get everything off. It's just going to stop you from digging into your case, but I've done this plenty of times, and so I like to just do little short strokes and watching how everything picks up off the case. Now sometimes when the case isn't exactly perfectly flat, like this part here, you can scratch along and it still doesn't take it off. So just take your time with it. Lots of little strokes vertical, and it'll clean that case up for you. You want to really get all the oil off just so it's clean. We'll clean it up afterwards. You can even use a little bit of steel wool afterwards just to clean and make sure the surface is free from any oil, just so your gasket maker sticks if you need to apply it. Right, so what we are going to do next is take the water pump cover off and start to remove the water pump so we can get the water pump seals out. Now before that, I like to remove the power valve governor. So we just lift the power valve back and we slip this out, or the power valve actuator, and we just slip out this mechanism and keep it aside. Now if you notice, the power valve here has a little bar cutting across, and that's how it works it. So to put it back in again, obviously this part here is going to go down into the bearing on the bottom, but this little groove in here is where that bar is going to go. So when the actuator's back, you're actually just going to slip it in and find where it seats inside, and once it's fully seated, that's you fixed. So next we're going to flip it over, and we're going to get the 8mm bolts that are holding the water pump cover on. We're going to take this off, all three, take it off, remove the gasket from the surface and crack the water pump to remove it. We'll be back shortly. Okay, so we only actually undo two because the third one here is just a weak bolt. That's how you relieve the liquid out of the pump while it's still attached. So we don't need to remove that, but we do need to remove the actual water pump cover. So here we just, and then we'll there's locator pins, so we just, here we go. This one is very crusty inside, but it should be fine. Now do not make the mistake I done a long time ago, and that was seeing this nut here while it was covered in rust, and I did in fact place a screwdriver between these and try to undo the nut in the middle. The nut is actually part of this impeller. It's actually the part, you go to the back, there's, I'll show you, but you hold on to the piece at the back and then you turn this nut off, which takes the whole impeller off. In fact, I still have it here as a monument. This was my old water pump, and I put a screwdriver in there and tried to undo that bolt thinking it was a separate bolt, because the old KXs used to have a separate bolt. So do not try that on this, and I'll show you how that actually comes off in a second. I'm just going to clean up the gasket area, have all that removed first. Now I was just removing the gasket cover on the other side, and it's just to show you these locator pins. These can come out as well, but just be careful and mindful they're there. That's what's going to align everything when you get it back onto the case. But yeah, now we'll clean up this area also, and we'll get on to removing the water pump. Try that again. So this is slotted on this side, can't really see right now, can you? Yeah, it's slotted right here. So a 10mm goes on here, you hold it, and a 12mm on the other side. And we will pop. Oh, that's on there tight. Right, well let me get this off just now. It's a bit stiff. Okay, so we have a little issue. This is not wanting to come off, so I am actually going to apply some heat with a blowtorch just to warm it up a bit, and then I don't want to risk breaking the impeller shaft, so we'll heat this up a bit. We should stretch the nut out a little bit, make it easier to come off. Okay, so we pick the seal out of the inside, and now we need to put a socket in, and we remove the other seal and the bearing. Just going to clean this bearing up. Bearing's still really good, so that's good, but we need to change the seals again. The way the seals go, so from the back of the case the flat part comes in so that our double rim with the springs facing the oil, but then on the top one we're also going to place the flat side over the top, and that's it. So right now I'm going to clean up the surfaces on both sides and be ready to reinstall seals, and that's pretty much the job done. We will rebuild the kickstart shaft and do everything in reverse. So I never showed you the beginning, but we will show you everything in reverse so that if you're watching along, you've never done it before, you'll still be able to follow it. And another thing is, although I was on the surface there hitting that, the power valve lever is down here, not trapped underneath the case, and the case is also up onto something raised off, so I had space to knock that stuff through. Otherwise you could be hammering for days if it's lying flat, and it's never going to knock the socket out. So you really want the case to be secure and not being damaged underneath, certainly not like a metal bolt lying under one of the edges when you're hitting it and then you damage the case. So yeah, while we're here, we do have to remove the kickstart shaft as well. So very carefully, screwdriver in and just lift very lightly, and that's the seal removed. So we'll clean up all these surfaces, have it so that it's ready for all the seals to go back in and there's no junk left behind to help let the seal leak when you put it back in again.